And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a stand-up guy who is indifferent, Paul Skenes. He is Cody Stavenhagen. How you doing?
Doing all right. How about stand-up comedy? I'm not a huge stand-up comedy guy. Some people are all about it. I'm like, it really has to be the right person, the right joke for it to land with me.
Well, it is in the eye of the beholder, but so everybody's kind of got their different taste. What is universally considered a bad outing for the Tigers on the stage, if you would, in Pittsburgh, was Monday night. We're recording this shortly after the Tigers lose 3-0 to Paul Skenes and the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'll say this. I'll say this at the top here, Cody. I'm somewhat joking and also, I don't know, maybe somewhat serious. I think there's a 0% chance that the Players Association would accept the salary cap if in the next CBA there was a rule that you're not allowed to face Paul Skenes the day after a night game when you have to travel cross country. I'm just saying there's a 0% chance because that is a daunting task to go up against Paul Skenes after playing Sunday night baseball in this case. And by the way, the Pirates didn't have to go anywhere. This is their homestand, so well rested, same bed, the exact opposite of what the Tigers experience. I'm not making excuses, but if you wanted to lend yourself to what you watched, something similar like that. Tigers looked a little bit tired. Pittsburgh looked a little fresher in the legs, tracking down seemingly every in between ball, and the Tigers had at least one that more or less cost them a chance to kind of be in the game. I know it's only 3-0, but if you watched it, it just kind of felt like three's a lot. A three spot's a lot when Paul Skenes is on the mound, and so sometimes it's a little as simple as that. But what's not simple,
I was in the room when Tony Clark at the All-Star game called a salary cap institutional collusion. So I don't think I know you're joking, but I don't think that union is going for a salary cap anytime soon. Okay. And Paul Skenes is on the executive subcommittee, and I don't think he's about that. Come face me as much as you want. I've seen a lot of Skenes this year. The Tigers actually scored, was it 4 runs off him the first time? And it kind of felt like, all right, good luck doing that again. And you're right. 3 spot in the first inning. Had a little bit of a bad feeling. But even coming out of the break, the Tigers, they've lost 3 or 4. It's been a little sluggish. The bats haven't totally been there. Would have been nice for Jack Flaherty to continue his kind of upward trajectory. Instead, probably the biggest puzzle of this season, which is Jack Flaherty, got a little more complicated.
More complicated at the same time, just kind of like this, like the same simple stuff, like that. And that's actually probably the puzzle of Jack Flaherty is that it got more complicated by the fact that he just does not command the strike zone. But in his pitching metrics don't inspire much confidence. Coming into today, fastball, run value, 22 percentile, breaking ball, 41, off speed, 41. And that is not a combination that is going to get major league hitters out on a consistent enough basis when you're signed to be the number 2 guy on the staff. And the thing that actually was probably a little bit different about this outing is in that second inning, in that 3 spot, with 2 outs, he not going to make excuses for him. He did not execute. He had a non-competitive walk in there. But the two run single, like that positioning kind of created that situation there for McKinstry in right field. That had an expected batting average of 150. So and I don't know if Jack was doing that calculation in his head, but that was also as probably outwardly frustrated as I had seen Jack Flaherty. Like he was waving his arms like as he was walking off the mound. Dingler trying to support his guy, the high five, but Jack kind of slapped it frustratingly, I'm sure at himself and at the situation, and then goes into the dugout and AJ just kind of gives him a little pat, kind of reading the room where it's kind of give this guy space to unwind a little bit, and was a little bit new from Jack, but that's proof of what we're seeing. I mean, that's exactly how a lot of people feel about his pitching, but that's proof as to like what we're seeing, where he clearly he's not pitching right, and he doesn't feel right either. But at the same time, he's nearly top 10 in strikeouts. He had 6 strikeouts today, nearly top 10 in strikeouts in all of Major League Baseball. So the complex and the simple of Jack Flaherty, that's the puzzle.
Yeah, I did. Kind of where I've landed for a while now is just his stuff at this point is not good enough to afford him any margin for error. And you mentioned the non-competitive walk, which kind of led to things blowing up, which led to his inning being so short. His pitch count got up there in a hurry. If you go back over his last 8 outings, he's averaging 5.4 walks per 9 innings, which is actually a little bit uncharacteristic for him. Last year at his best, his command was on point. He was really limiting walks. But even going back just a month, the walks have kind of quietly ticked up. So you look at some walks, you look at loud contact because he's left some balls over the middle and it doesn't quite have the stuff to get it by guys. The Pirates had an average exit velocity of 92 miles an hour. That's pretty high. He did some things well. Maybe there was some batted ball luck, but then the called strike whiff rate, 24%, not quite where you want it. It's not really hard to see some very basic things going wrong with Flaherty in this outing. And then it's like, okay, well, it's been so up and down. He always talks about his mechanics, locking in his mechanics, how's his body moving. And just when you think he's getting right, he has another pretty subpar outing, and then just when you think it's over, he goes 6 and he looks pretty good. So I don't know exactly what to make of it or how to explain the inconsistency, but I think 2 pretty easy problems, loud contact and sneaky walks, have continued to really kind of be his Achilles heel.
Yeah, and I don't want to assume things that I don't know and I don't have access to, so I'm not going to do that. But I will say that it does not look like he's in sync. I think that's a fair way to say without kind of making assumptions about things, information that I'm not privy to.
Oh, did you think he looked in sync 2 starts ago?
Yeah. I mean, you can go in and out of sync, on a start to start basis. But
sure.
like
he has.
Case in point. But there's something. I don't know if it's consistency of approach. I don't know if it's a. I don't know if it's a game plan thing. Like the answer is something that we do not know, that we do not have access to. But I can tell you that the execution, which is what we watch, is not good enough, and he's becoming. I think it's fair to say that when he was brought in at like the floor of the Jack Flaherty experience for 2025 at the time of the signing was a relatively stable expected outcome. I think that's fair to say. And given the Job element, given the Cobb element, given Casey Mize and Maeda and like all these things that we spent time talking about back in the late last year, early this year, you thought, okay, well, you bring in Flaherty and there's a stabilizing force there. Now he's a little bit more wild card. And I don't want to overreact and say I don't think he can get it right, because if he's healthy, I do believe in his ability to get it right. And it's July 21st. It's not September 21st. So like there is some level of time here, but it's just hard, like immediately after watching that, to feel like it's a guarantee. It's not the stabilizing force I think he was brought in to be right now. It's a little bit more wild card. Wild cards are high, wild cards are low.
That's a good way to put it. It's post All-Star break. Jack Flaherty has a 4.77 ERA. I think that is lower than the floor I would have guessed at the time of his signing. Now we'll see where that ends up toward season's end. But yeah, like in a way, I have faith that he can get it right. In a way, I also come back to like, well, maybe that's okay if you have other guys in front of him who are producing well and he's toward the back of your rotation and he's kind of the wild card. Maybe that's not the worst thing. I think maybe the most encouraging thing I saw over the past few days was Reese Olsson going out and having himself a nice outing. That's someone who is probably not talked about enough as being huge for the Tigers down the stretch into the postseason. Can you get the Reese Olsson, who's been one of the best pitchers in terms of ERA in baseball over the past year plus, or are you going to get the Reese who's battled injuries, had some short outings, not been built up, looked rusty? The Reese we saw in Texas was a lot closer to the version of Reese Olsson you want to see going down the stretch, and in a way, that could take some burden off Jack Flaherty every fifth day.
Right. And then, we'll kind of wrap up this pitching discussion from the Texas series with a little bit of a national flair about how the Tigers are being talked about. But first, a word from our sponsors. Nothing says summer like long days, clutch plays, and firing off a few bets on the game, all with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's easy. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride with your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. It's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right, coming back here, Skubal had himself another dominant outing on national television, like that's never happened before. Sunday night baseball at Texas, 6.2, 11 Ks, gave up 4 hits. He had a walk. He is human. Was able to, win a last batter battle against Jonah Heim, and he kind of let out an emotion that was kind of like a third out emotion, but then he kind of regrouped, and then AJ had, it was kind of funny about that. AJ actually kind of had the conversation went about 10 seconds longer than I was like, oh man, is he gonna not pull him here? Because it's pretty uncommon, but no, ends up Holton comes in. We know Holton comes in, spikes the ball. Tie game. Vierling ends up getting the winning hit, and Vest closes it down. But the Skubal outside the diamond news, if you will, on social media and on the broadcast was Buster Olney saying that Skubal's going to get $400 million. I'm paraphrasing here. Skubal's going to get $400 million, and the question is whether it's the Mets, the Yankees, or the Dodgers. And there's been some pushback to that regarding, is that the most good steward of the game thing to do? If you're ESPN, if you're Buster, I'm not calling out Buster specifically because he's not the only one that kind of talks like this, but he just happened to do it recently. And the Tigers, 60 wins, first team to 60 wins. Skubal on the cusp of potentially a second straight Cy Young, something that hasn't been done since Roger Clemens was in Toronto in the American League. So, my question kind of to you, Cody, who is a Big J journalist, and I mean that seriously, is this talking point regarding Skubal right now? Is it like a fair or foul talking point in general? I'm not specific to Buster. I'm not trying to call out Buster, but is this a fair or foul part of the Tigers' story this year? I guess that's the way I would ask it.
Well, it's unavoidable. Is that fair or foul? I don't know. I personally am not a huge fan of endlessly speculating about things we can't possibly know the answer to, which is where's Tarik Skubal going to be playing in 2 years? Tarik Skubal himself, maybe he has an idea, but he doesn't know that answer. Scott Boras, maybe he has a couple thoughts. He doesn't know that answer. A lot could happen between now and then, both in terms of Skubal, both in terms of the Tigers, both in terms of the landscape of the league. I think it is logical to think Tarik Skubal is the best pitcher on the planet. He's in his prime. He's going to command $400 million. Who is most likely to pay $400 million? Let's look at the richest teams. That makes sense. So I don't know that that's irresponsible, but also to act like this is a all or nothing, like there are no variables here, is a little short-sighted. A great example. Who's the best pitcher of the past generation? A lot of people would say Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander's never played for the New York Yankees. Now, he did sign an extension with the Tigers, probably at, his most opportune moment in free agency. But he stayed on the Houston Astros for a little bit. He did sign a big deal short term with the Mets, as did Max Scherzer. But Scherzer at his peak earnings, he signed with the Washington Nationals. That's where they were in their competitive cycle. They were willing to dole out that money. There was a time not long ago where Corey Seager was the best shortstop on the planet, and he signed a big deal with the Texas Rangers. It can vary where teams are in their competitive cycles, where they are in their ownership cycles, where they are in terms of the luxury tax, who's already on payroll. There could be other teams in 1.5 years' time that enter this bidding for Tarik Skubal. We haven't mentioned the Boston Red Sox, who historically like to bid on some dudes. Like, there are other big market teams. We'll see what the Tigers are able to offer up. I just think it could be more teams than just the Yankees or the Dodgers. It might well be the Yankees or the Dodgers. I mean, I guess that's the place to be. But there are going to be other teams in this mix.
If you think that one of the problems with baseball is it's too coastal, and then you frame the conversation that way, then you're kind of feeding that beast. You see what I'm saying? And by the way, the Cubs potentially could be making a big splash, and the Marlins are kind of sniffing around making a big splash right now. Not specific to Skubal, just in general. Or I'm sorry, not the Marlins, the Rays. The Rays.
Okay,
the Rays.
I don't think the Rays are ever going to pay
wrong
anybody.
Florida team, because
I don't think Tarik Skubal is going to pitch for the Marlins or the Rays. Write that down. Send it to ESPN.
Yeah, it was Kyle Tucker nuggets out there about who might be looking for his services.
And that's where this comes in too. Like, players have different priorities. The Tucker to the Rays thing keeps coming up because that's hometown. Tucker, maybe he's not a big fan of the cameras and the spotlight. Skubal does seem a little more apt for the stage, right? But I don't know. Skubal's about to have his second kid. Some guys want to, decide they want to go play in a place they can live year round, like Arizona or California or Texas, or that. I mean, there are other locations, but let's be real. Detroit's generally not one of those places. New York's generally not one of those places. Like, there are just so many variables. And 18 months out, I don't know why everyone has to assume like they know the answer.
It seems like maybe the best way to put it, since we're talking about contracts, is like, is there any value to framing it that way? I think I would lean no, if I'm just trying to describe the landscape of the game and contextualize what we're watching, which is what you're doing on a game broadcast and what you're doing when you write stories in advance of big moments and stuff like that. So, like, I don't know if it adds any value to the experience for the consumer, for the fan, that kind of thing. And then also, like, there's also a piece to this where the Tigers for a generation were considered big spenders, right? We all know the examples of that. And so we get questions all the time about, like, well, the Tigers have this, they're a big market. Detroit's a big market. They can go out and they can, go acquire talent. They can spend to get talent. So then we get that piece. And then now, like, it's spun as if they're just automatically out of the bidding for Skubal. So those things kind of butt heads a little bit narrative wise. So, like, for someone who thinks about it, who is in it day to day about, like, thinking about this team and the construction and Skubal and all this stuff, like, it feels like it feels disjointed to me. And so, like, I don't think it serves anybody to kind of frame the discussion like that, especially when the team, if they were 500, Cody, like, I would be like, all right, I mean, that's part of it. That's probably something that you're going to have to think about right now if you're Scott Harris, right? But they are near or have the best record in baseball. I just don't know, like, that's a puny market way of looking at the Tigers situation, in my opinion, which I don't think the Tigers are a puny market. So I just don't think it
No, I
fits.
mean, I think the Tigers, if they want to, are plenty capable of mustering up a competitive offer. Whether that will be accepted, as I always say, I just think Scott Boras is going to take this to free agency, and he's going to bid it against the Yankees and the Dodgers and whoever else might want to enter that mix. In a way, the Tigers, the Mike Ilitch era, are a great example of the fact that like things change. There was a time not that long ago where the Tigers were in on every big free agent, or they were going to try to trade for some big fish. And one reason it's easy to write them off, they haven't quite operated like that in a while. And like, based on what we know about Scott Harris, I don't know. Is he going to want to hand out 10 years, $400 million? Is that even wise to do? That's a whole other discussion that maybe
These
we'll
are
spend all
off-season.
off season talking about.
Yeah.
Think about where we were a year ago. Tigers sucked. They were whispers. John Morosi reported like 18 times, like links between Skubal and the Orioles. And none of that was ever true, by the way. But like, look where the Orioles are now, and look where the Tigers are now, and let that just linger. And let's think 18 months from now, who's going to be winning? Who's going to be looking to add payroll? That there could be someone else jumping in this mix. I bet the Tigers will be in it. I bet the Yankees will be in it. I bet the Dodgers will be in it. I bet a couple more teams. Maybe some classic mystery teams.
Buster Posey gonna throw his hat in the ring, or I should say mask in the ring. So yeah, I mean, again, the whole, we're talking in circles in a little bit because that's the point, is that there's no way to do this without
we have
talking in
now
circles
gone back to the original point of like speculating on things we
and
don't
whether
know about.
and whether it's a good use of time. So we kind of fed into it while trying to articulate some thoughts on it, and there you go. We are gonna take a quick break. And then we're going to talk about probably the coolest news of the day for the Tigers. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Time for a quickie break. Todd Father and I are going to tell you about Huel, but it's mostly going to be Todd Father because I'm going to take a sip.
Well, we're talking about Huel, 27 vitamins and minerals. It's a complete meal. Let's listen. We all have busy schedules. As Scott's sipping it down, it looks delicious. It tastes delicious. When we're on the run, we need something to eat quick. And guess what? Huel is there, all different flavors. Scotty loves them. I love them. And I love how variety packed it is, and we can eat them any time of the day.
That's right. Yeah, check out the website. There's bars. There are so many different flavors. I love the black edition. Chocolate, 35 grams of protein. There's strawberry shortcake, coffee caramel, cookies and cream. I can go on, and you get yourself 15% off if you're a new customer using the code FOUL at Huel.com/foul. Please see our description for the terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition with the code FOUL at Huel.com/foul.
All right, coming back here, Cody. A little bit of flowers for you because when you didn't put in a physical call, but you've been on this guy longer than this season. But we've been kind of we've been focused on him this season. Troy, the meteoric rise of Troy Melton will, at least for a time, peak with a major league debut on Wednesday. It's not like roster structure official yet, but Troy Melton will be starting Wednesday afternoon for the Tigers, and this is a guy that if you follow the farm system well, this has been a name that you've been reading about for a long time. He started out in Erie this year, and then in AAA, he's just been making dudes look silly. A little bit more in 36 innings. He's got a 2.72 ERA. He's got 56 Ks. He throws hard. He attacks hitters. I'm not going to pretend to have a whole scouting report on him, Cody, but this is your guy. So I'm just going to kind of leave the floor to you. Why have you been on Troy Melton as long as you have, and then also maybe what's the opportunity here? What's the opportunity for a Troy Melton when as he gets called up to the major leagues?
Yeah, I've been on Melton for a while for a pretty simple reason. His stuff is really good. He's kind of been an example of like, okay, are we scouting stuff or are we scouting results? His numbers last year in terms of ERA, in Erie, I think it was above 5, but it was an upper 90s fastball with terrific vertical movement with a good slider to boot. This offseason, he goes in, he's working on some stuff. He's adding a cutter to the arsenal. He's fine tuning everything. If one of those guys, he didn't actually struggle with walks last year either. I mean, he had a 5.10 ERA in 100 innings, despite 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, 2.7 walks, which isn't bad. He was a little prone to giving up home runs, but he comes out this year, and it's just these little tweaks here and there, right? And then, okay, he has an outlier vert fastball. That's going to play. He has a legit secondary pitch, and he's able to use his arsenal a little better. He comes out in Erie. He's pitching well. He gets bumped up to Toledo. He pitches even better. He's averaged 12.1 Ks per 9 in the minors this year, Kieran. It seems like he's starting to be in the strike zone more. It seems like he knows how to command his entire arsenal. Seems like this is a guy who's been trending to Detroit. I wondered if they were going to move him to the bullpen. He made a relief appearance in Toledo just to, so it was like, is this the way to get him to Detroit? No, he's going to make a start, man. He's debuting as a starter, and it seems like he has a varied enough arsenal that he could certainly remain a starter if it works out that way. What's the runway here? The opportunity? I think it's hard to talking about unknowns. Like the trade deadline is coming up, so I don't know. I don't think one or two good outings or bad outings is going to make or break like Troy Melton. I don't know. Maybe if he really comes out and shoves, like you can shut down. Well, why need another starter? We got Troy Melton. And this is one of the things I talk about. Like internal improvements are going to be part of this. Melton's going to get a shot, whether it's a starter, whether it's maybe in more of a swingman role, maybe whether it's something else. There are openings, there are jobs open on this pitching staff. There are going to be some outside additions coming in a couple weeks, less than a couple weeks, getting here quick. But I think Troy Melton has a chance to lock some innings in the major leagues this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to put it. It's like sometimes you got to give credit to AJ Fett, the staff and the front office as well for just like creating a situation that makes the cliche real. And in this case, it would be that we don't have a set plan for Troy Melton. We're just gonna let him do his thing, and then we'll be able to figure it out because the opportunities are there. There's not an ironclad 5 here going on right now, Cody, for the Tigers, and so like it's a situation that will work itself out. Again, another pun. But like or a cliche, I should say. Like it's a situation that will work itself out. But he's gonna have every opportunity to earn his way into regular big league outings. I mean, he could be the new Montero with like the opener, and then he gets the bulk roll or whatever. Like this, like it's all on the table for Troy Melton, and with stuff and results, the blending of the two things that you just talked about. It's hard not to get excited. I mean, we love major league debuts here, but it's hard not to get excited about what kind of this could provide the pitching staff that is probably, as you look at it today, is in need of a non-Skubal sort of energy boost. I would say, and I'm very eager to see what Troy has in store, and we will react to that start on Wednesday into Thursday's episode. We'll have a reaction to Troy Melton's major league debut, and excited to talk to you, Cody, about that when it happens. All right, let's wrap up here, Cody, with a little two things. One, great audition for Ke'Bryan Hayes for the Tigers to trade for him. Had a couple of hits, had some really nice defensive plays. So, hey, credit where credit. Talk about opportunity. Credit where credit is due, man. We know our Ke'Bryan Hayes takes, but yeah. So I had to chuckle when he had a couple of base hits today. But speaking of right-handed at bats, infielder at bats, the Jahmai Jones thing. I think is worth talking about right now. It's a role, Cody, that partially it's a little unfair, and this was the same for Andy Ibanez, right? Like it's a little unfair because the opportunities are typically big in leverage, but limited in rhythm. So like, when you're pitch hitting against a lefty and that's why it's so great when you're successful and you can become like a folk hero like Andy was last year. And Jahmai, certainly had his time in the spotlight with that earlier this year. But some of his offensive output, because of, like I said, the kind of the lack of rhythm thing, is it's definitely decreased. And so the question becomes, how long is that runway for Jahmai Jones? For the record, Andy Ibanez is doing well against left-handed pitching and, somewhat limited at bats, 37 at bats. It's 351. He's got a home run, 2 doubles. He's got a 478 on base against lefties in Toledo this year, just, for the record there. But, Jahmai Jones has had his moments. I think he's been a positive influence in that clubhouse. Seems like the guys really like him. But we're also kind of talking about limited opportunities and big opportunities. And if you string together some zeros in that role, it kind of magnifies it. You know what I mean? So I just kind of
it's hard. Like, again, you look at the overall numbers, which is still a small sample. It's kind of skewed in a way by a couple big homers, but they're pretty good. And then it's like, okay, well, he's in a, 1 for 20, 2 for 23 spell. And it feels a little magnified, but this is something AJ Hinch has been talking about all year, dating back to when Jahan was on the roster. Like, this is the hardest role in the team. You were a platoon bat. You were going to enter to face the other team's best reliever. Good luck. Hope you connect every now and then is kind of what it comes down to. And in a way, Jahmai Jones has done this job quite well. In a way, you go through a little drought and it feels a little bit magnified. So to zoom out, like, okay, when we think trade deadline, this is kind of the one position player spot that seems up for the taking. They could go get another right-handed bat. Would they do Eugenio Suarez, who you have to pretty much pencil in that lineup every day, a little bit on Tigers-like? Or would you rather roll with, you could have Jahmai, you could have Jahan, you could have Andy? Or I've thought for a long time, maybe the answer is just a kind of an upgrade or like a more proven Jahmai. Enough people, I don't think, are talking about Ahmad Rosario of the Nationals. This is a guy who has an 841 OPS against left-handed pitching this year. He plays short. He plays second. He plays outfield. He plays third. He's played short most of his career, started moving to play more third. Would seem to make a lot of sense. But even then, I don't know. You're kind of pinning yourself to one guy. Whether right now, what would you just ride the hot hand, Andy, Jahan, Jahmai, the rest of the season? Is that responsible? Is that not? I'm going to be honest. I don't know how I feel about this one. I change my mind on it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. And I think it's all, and I'm glad you brought up another name now, because I do believe that most likely the right-handed bat addition will be somebody that no one's like really talking about. It's not going to be like the headliner, tier 1, tier 2, probably not like, sort of like trade deadline guys.
Are we wrong to assume that, though? Are we trying to win a World Series here? Like, I don't know. Add a little pop to this order? I don't know.
Well, extend school. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going back to that. But yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. Is it the system, or do you just go get yourself sort of like an outlier team fit with the idea of like it's worth it to kind of go against the grain of your normal mode of operation given the stakes of the season? So it's a fascinating piece. We're going to talk a lot of trade deadline over the next 10 days, Cody. So we're gonna have plenty of times to throw some names and throw some trades and see what you guys think. We'll have a mailbag episode here pretty soon about that. I'm sure that will be one of the big talking points. And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's a different trade deadline than we've ever experienced. I'm doing this podcast, so I'm looking forward to the anticipation and then how it plays out. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran _Steckley, pop page at Tiger Territory _ YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You guys know what to do. We appreciate all of you. So for Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.